Hi, I'm Ralph Albert Thomas, CEO and Executive Director of the New Jersey Society of CPAs, and we're here live at the 2014 NJCPA Convention and Expo here in Atlantic City at Bally's Casino. And I have with me Kelly Ferrin, who is our kickoff keynote speaker today. And Kelly is a gerontologist and gave us a real inspirational discussion about longevity and people living longer and things of that nature. So we're going to talk about some interesting questions that I want to pose with Kelly to get her view for our members. And one of the interesting stats was you quoted a figure that the number of people turning 65 is going to be increasing by 58% or that number.
Yeah.
So tell me, if that's going to happen, are people staying in the workforce longer because they have to, or they feel they need to? Are they going to? What's going to happen there?
Well, first and foremost, my friend, we're blazing new trails here. So, we've never been down this path where we've seen these types of numbers as far as the 65 plus being the majority of the population, 65 plus population at work up 58% in the last 10 years. These are some very new trends. And I think, it's a very interesting question. Are they working because they want to, or are they working because they have to? I think it's both. I really do. I think it's
Really?
both. Yeah. I don't think 65 is what it used to be.
Right.
And obviously, we're working in a type of culture where we're not moving boulders. We're using our brains. We're in a different type of work environment. So I think that's one of the things, and I think most of them feel 10, 15 years younger than their natural age. So that's another interesting trend.
So what are the implications on the workforce and on companies now that if people are working longer because they feel good, they don't feel that they need to exit the workforce? What does that say about the younger folks, the X's and Y's and millennials that are looking to rise up in a company?
Sure. Well, I think that you have done a great job in that. I think that a lot of companies are addressing this right now, and I think that obviously we both bring different skill sets. I think that the older workers, the seasoned workers as we call them, definitely have a different set of skills that can be mentors perhaps to the younger skills coming in. But at the same time too, I think the younger ones can, do some different things for the older workers as well. So we're going to see an interesting combination there. Listen, the facts right now show that there's a shortage of younger skilled workers coming into the workplace. We do know that. I'm not really sure how this is going to go. I think it's interesting to see a parallel, though, that companies are facing some of these very serious financial concerns about an aging workforce.
Sure.
And certainly we're seeing that in our government in the United States. We've got a Social Security system that obviously is not been updated, and that's causing some problems. So maybe if older workers are in the workforce longer, will that help in that respect? Certainly we're looking at, you can't help but talk about the expense of what's happening with unions as well, paying for health care.
If these older workers, or let me say seasoned workers, if the seasoned employees stay in the workforce, what does that do with succession planning for companies? How does a company plan for that and say, I was thinking that individuals would be looking to depart or exit the workforce at 65, but now they're still able to contribute. How do we weave that into a succession plan?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Ralph, and I'm not really sure we have the answer yet. I think it's going to be a lot of trial and error. I think we're going to see things through. I think that if you find, or at least the statistics show, that the majority of baby boomers do expect to be working well into retirement, maybe because they want to and because they have to, but it's the flexibility in the workplace and flexibility in the jobs, so they don't want to be doing, hardcore 50-hour work weeks perhaps.
Right.
Maybe they want to pull back and do 3 days a week, or maybe they want to work half days, so maybe some shared jobs, as we transition into some of these types of things. So there's a softer flow. Succession, I don't know. I met one of your CPAs here today who's 90. And what an awesome story. And of course, I loved what he said, and it's so right on point. He said, look, I keep doing this because I love what I do, and I love being around younger people. I think we both contribute to each other and our success that we do. So Listen, when you look up the word retirement in the dictionary, it does the number one thing we know in the field of gerontology, which is the worst thing for you. Disengagement, pushed aside,
Right.
no longer contributing. I don't think that's a healthy way to live. And I think in many respects, we've really failed at helping people transition to retirement. And what is this retirement?
Now you just put it this transition.
Yeah.
Now, what can companies do in today's environment to help its workforce prepare for this? I mean,
Well, you guys have done it. I mean, I think that's one of the things, at least a start in,
Yeah.
the fact that, you have brought in some financial advisors to kind of talk with these things, but you're talking about the different group. I mean, those are maybe for your younger
we have
skills.
4 generations in the workforce.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges that we've seen is getting them to work together.
Right.
You've got the matures and the boomers on
Right.
one side, and then you
Right.
have the X's and the Y's on the other, and they all want the other to come to the other side.
right.
How do companies, get them to come together and meet in the middle, so to speak? What are some of the things that maybe you've seen or you're thinking about that companies should pursue to think about that? Because I think that's something that our members would be interested in learning, because they're living this right now.
Right. I don't know, I think that we've been so trained in professional status to be marking our turf, It's like we don't want someone coming in, we don't want to act like we don't know everything that's going on there. So I'm not, Ralph, I really don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I think that we've got great leaders who will try and transition and figure these things out. And I think certainly one of the things you have to do, maybe we have to create advisory boards perhaps of an individual from each one of those that can kind of come together and collaborate and talk about what's working, what doesn't work, what do these people want in a non-threatening way perhaps. And then maybe start making some transitions there. I don't know. I mean, there is no roadmap here,
Interesting.
unfortunately.
You think of advisory boards usually where you bring people in from the outside, but that's an interesting concept about using people internally to be
because
part
I think
of an
that then
advisory board.
there's more of a receptivity and an opportunity in a non-threatening way again for everybody to kind of learn what's a priority for each other and see that seasoned workers perhaps feel that there is a lot more they can contribute. There's a lot more they can contribute to the bottom line, but they're not interested in staying there forever or taking someone's job or not giving somebody else an opportunity. They want to still stay there to be engaged and to do what they do and maybe help transition. I think that's another really important thing. We see that in a lot of the financial firms, and I think probably in the CPAs as well, is that a client in their 50s or 60s or maybe even 70s or 80s may not be as comfortable sitting down and chatting with a young buck 20 or 30-year-old CPA. So there's maybe some things that need to be learned and transitioned in that respect as well. I don't know.
A recent study came out that indicated, and we know this, that employee benefit costs are still a number one concern, while it's diminished a little bit, but it's still a major concern of companies. And how do you deal with that again with the 4 generations of workforce and the fact that seasoned individuals, I want to make sure I use a politically correct term, are looking to stay in the workforce because they feel they can still contribute. They don't feel the need to exit the workforce or retire.
But you're referring to specifically the healthcare
Well,
costs?
I think healthcare and benefit costs associated with that. Certainly it's become, a huge factor in a company's operations. And I know it's a tough question to deal with, but if you don't deal with it, the problem doesn't go away.
No, that's right.
And so, do we start the dialogue and conversation now, and to think of,
I don't think it's any surprise to anybody, employees of all ages, that clearly healthcare costs are out of control, and the benefits that are expected from employees, are going to have to be adjusted because that's just, we're seeing it. We're seeing it in the unions where we saw General Motors was paying more in retiree healthcare costs than parts for the cars. And clearly that can't continue. And I don't know of any organization that has retiree healthcare costs that's not an issue.
No, every organization.
So it's not we're doing something intentionally. And I guess I would always go back and use, an objective sampling of what we're seeing happening with Social Security. I mean, it wasn't designed to pay and be the primary source of income for 30 years. It just wasn't designed that way. I mean, when that 65 age mark was established, people were living 3 to 5 years after retirement. They weren't living 30 years. So we forget that 1935 when LBJ signed Medicare bill into play, we had annual costs in healthcare of $3 billion. The projected 12-year was $30 billion. It ended up being $107 billion. They were off just a little bit, And so now we're facing Medicare costs of $2 trillion. So obviously there's extraordinary advances in healthcare that are enabling people to live long lives. It's good news, but it's bad news too, because they come at a very high cost. And so,
well, as part of the solution, sort of your area of gerontology, where companies should be educating their staffs about being physically fit, wellness programs being introduced, rewards for people who are part of wellness programs. So is that part of the conversation?
Listen, I'll never forget 30 years ago. I mean, I, as a young, blazing trailed gerontologist coming out, I could see that. And I'll tell you, in all honesty, it took 30 years for the financial industry to find me as a gerontologist and start talking. People just weren't ready to have these conversations. Now this industry has done an amazing job educating consumers. I mean, great advertising and that kind of thing. But one of the things that I saw very clearly was we have to teach people. I mean, certainly people know what they should be doing. They're just not doing it to stay healthy. And as one who analyzes trends, I look at that and say, why would that be? Why would people not take care of themselves when they know it's going to benefit them to do so? And I truly believe it's because of the extraordinary breakthroughs in healthcare. Now everybody thinks that they can just annihilate their bodies and expects the healthcare system to fix it. So we have a whole different mentality that's going on here. So yeah, I do think that we need to be more involved in that, and I think there need to be some perks. I think in all aspects of insurance, there need to be gold stars to those people who drive safely, drink moderately, keep weight in control, exercise, have those types of things. Absolutely. And you know what? Hey, non-smokers should be rewarded. Smokers should pay a higher cost. That's just the American way.
Well, I know insurance companies take that into consideration, but then should employers then think about doing some things on their side of the fence in terms of
to provide them?
Well, to provide programs, but also to encourage and
incentives.
incentivize people.
I think so. I mean, I think that here again, man, it's a slippery slope, and we're blazing new trails. There's no roadmap here, so we're just going to have to kind of step back, take a look at what our options are, collectively get some input from all people within the organization, and see what ends up working. And I think we can take lead from what we're already seeing being done.
Well,
and.
This has certainly been an interesting conversation on a topic that hopefully a journey that our members will be going down, and hopefully from this that they will start to take heed and start to do something on the front end as opposed to the back end.
Yeah, I think so, and I think props go to you and this organization. No, really, because there aren't very many that bring out the type of speakers you guys did today, and to really kind of get these people to think differently and really take a look at what they're doing. And that partnership and the relationship that they have with their clients and employees is so valuable and so important. So good for you.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for taking time to come and chat with us about this. I think this is going to be great.
Thank you for what you're doing.